Alrighty, we're back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly. It's episode number 504, and we're recording live on February 16th. How are you, Brianna?
I'm doing pretty good. We had a long weekend, so that was nice. And President's Day being yesterday and Valentine. So lots of like fun family activities as much as we could come up with. And yeah, and then last night here in Atlanta, we got what I'm calling like a sneeze of snow. It's literally like a dusting. So all the schools are either virtual or canceled today. It's really laughable, like if you're from the Northeast. But yeah, so, just navigating that and trying to get back into a shortened work week, but everything's going pretty good.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah, so up here, we've had it pretty good. In the Toronto area, we've had very little, if any, snow. Just usually we get a little dusting, and then it's like been warm, so it's all melted within an hour or two. And like I've had mostly green grass for the entire winter. And then last night we got probably sort of the other part of the same storm, that's hitting the whole sort of central U.S. Whatever. I heard Texas has got pretty good and whatever. But anyways, we got some snow last night, so we've got about a foot of snow on the ground this morning, and apparently some more coming this week. So we'll see. We finally have winter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's about it. I don't have anything else to say. We also had a long weekend up here. I spent most of it doing work, but I'm sure there was a lot of interesting Valentine's Day celebrations going on, socially distanced or however. We have a couple stories to talk about on today's show that are Valentine's oriented, and I did get out and go skating with my family yesterday for an hour or so. So that was nice on a pond, like a pond that was frozen in the area. So it was good.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Ugh, I wish we could do that here. I mean, I think there is an outdoor skating rink I came across. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll go do that. But obviously, it's a little harder to keep things cold around here.
Yes, I'm sure it is. All right, well, let's jump right into it. We've got four stories we want to cover this week, and I'll let Brianna start us off.
Yeah, so this is a fun campaign that Shake Shack did. They actually partnered with Boyz II Men. So, taking it back way into this was our, favorite records. But they did this campaign, and I mean, think about like they actually had the singing "I'll Shake Love to You" instead of "I'll Make Love to You" with Boyz II Men singing. And so they partnered with DoorDash to do this. And so they were doing delivery. And they also live streamed a concert Valentine's evening, which was available, I think, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitch, I believe. So, trying to give couples a fun, romantic evening from home. They also had some limited edition items that they brought out, like Barry's Tim Men milkshake theme. And if you were in New York City or Philly, you could actually get some merch like scented candles and t-shirts and fun things like that. So I think this is super fun. Like, I love just bringing different things together, like entertainment from a content perspective, especially music, and around the holiday. Obviously, what's not to love about Shake Shack burgers, fries, and milkshakes. Although, it may not be like your favorite date night food if you're just starting, a relationship, but maybe if you're like a little more comfortable, it might be one of your go-to faves. So I think this is a fun, campaign that they ran, and I love the creativity, the delivery aspect, the social aspect of this. I wish they would have maybe brought in a little bit more social aspect where, maybe couples would have been rewarded for, sharing that they were streaming the concert or, something like that alongside of Shake Shack for recognition. But I think that overall it's a pretty good campaign they ran.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's fun. Obviously, it harkens back to a different era with it being Boys to Men, and for us older folks, I think that's interesting. And obviously there was the live sort of component to it. So at 8 p.m. Eastern on Valentine's Day, you could go on to Facebook Live or Instagram Live and see this performance from Boys to Men. So that I think that was kind of fun. Like I find it super interesting right now that there's so many things going on, that draw on the music of the 80s or the television of the 80s and early 90s, where they've had all these sort of events during COVID of sort of recasting TV shows as a one-off with black actors, and things like that, and kind of doing these, these special events, and some shows are actually being, sequels are being made of 80s TV shows. I heard they were doing like a remake of Knight Rider now or something. I don't know. Like, there's all this stuff going on, right? But I find it super interesting that this is back. And even this morning, I turned on the news, like just our regular news channel up here, and they were saying that with COVID and mental health and all these things that are happening with people being in lockdown, apparently new research has said that one of the things that can calm you down the most is listening to music from the 80s. I have no idea why. I didn't have time to stick around and listen to this, and then so they had all the hosts on the news thing like pick their favorite 80s song, and then they played it was crazy. So it was like Jitterbug and like Careless Whisper, and I'm like, what is happening over here? But anyways, yeah. So I like it, and I like that they had that event going on the sort of Facebook and Instagram live piece of it. I like sort of how they're teaming up with this DoorDash and Shake Shack, kind of working together to kind of bring these special things out, because people can't go and book reservations for that special Valentine's dinner like you would have in the past. So I think it's neat. I think it's creative, and I think it's a cool way to kind of just try something different. And and a Shake Shack, they make a good burger and a shake. So I mean, why not? There you go. All right. On to our second story. So this one is about a new company, new product that's launching in the UK called GeoProve. That's one word, GeoProve. And it's being launched by Naren Patel and Matt Tiemann, who are the former heads of Primesight, a well-known UK location technology company. So basically what they're doing with GeoProve is this is a mobile location verification platform, is what they call it, that helps advertisers ensure that the campaigns that they're delivering are actually reaching customers with accurate data. And so they claim that that they're able to sort of verify the accuracy of the delivery of the ad content, and that it's actually going to a real mobile device, and not like sort of fake generated sort of counting in the sort of views and that type of thing. So obviously we know ad fraud is a huge problem in the advertising industry, in the location world specifically. We know there's all sorts of fake data out there as well. Obviously at the LBMA we talk a lot about this. People are greatly using location data and location ad targeting, but the confidence year over year, we track in our annual survey their confidence in the accuracy of that data and the viability of that data. And while it's getting better, it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. So I think there is room for tools like GeoProve to kind of go out and verify, that the campaign is working, and that it's actually being delivered to devices that are actually seeing this. And so they've kind of got this health check that they call it, a location health score and a location supply score, which are part of this sort of verification system, if you will. And they've been trialing this on a couple of campaigns already, and seeing some good results. So I think it's interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is interesting, but there's a few thoughts that come to mind. One, I think it's an interesting time to start any type of a a geo-focused tool set or, based company. And I also find it very interesting that of all places that they're doing this in, because obviously location data is much harder to come by there, and it's a lot harder to make sure that things are in compliance. So while I will echo that you are correct in the fact that location data tends to improve, and we're getting more clarity into what is good quality data, where that comes from, how do we better navigate ad fraud. All of those things are improving. I think there's also challenges, including technical challenges, where we're getting less and less location data now. And so, what does that look like for a company like this long term? And how does that, resonate for not only their value proposition, but also for ad fraud as a whole? And what are the things that are going to be able to be used there to limit that and prevent that moving forward? So I think there's a lot of concern, and it's just a very wild, wild west time in the ad world right now with all of these changes that are happening. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's an interesting concept. I think it's, there's definitely a need for more preventative measures and offerings to make sure that campaigns are going where they're supposed to go. Also, it kind of reminds me of location sciences a little bit, and kind of what they were doing in terms of like scoring location data as a whole. So, it'll just be interesting to see like what's the trajectory of something like this longer term.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think the timing is interesting. There's no question that the need for this type of verification is there, and it's important, and has been a problem in the industry that advertising networks have taken advantage of in a lot of ways. So I think it's really important that way. But I think as we see Apple, sort of make their moves around privacy and limit the IDFA and the Google Ad ID coming and following along suit and so on, there's less and less of this data out there, meaning that it's going to be harder to activate these campaigns in the first place. And so with what's left, yes, we need to be accurate and we need to be able to verify that, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see how those two things play together. So but yeah, check it out. GeoProve is now in the market. All right.
So on to another food story and some Valentine's fun that happened. Girl Scout has partnered with GrubHub for the delivery of their Girl Scout cookies. So this is interesting to anybody who loves Girl Scout cookies, which if you don't, I probably just question you as a human being, but it's a bit, this time of year is having their sign up sheets for their kids in their offices, or, the kids are setting up stands outside of Walmart or wherever there's traffic to sell these cookies. But obviously there's some challenges around that. I know around here, there's still some of that's being done in different ways. But one thing that they've done is that they did some virtual online cookie booths with GrubHub. So they were able to partner up in some select cities so they could accept orders, the payments, fulfill the cookie orders in a contact-free way. And GrubHub actually waived all their fees for the organization, and they offered free delivery through Valentine's Day with a purchase of $15, which is great as well. So kind of giving back to the Girl Scout organization, which is nice to see a company like GrubHub doing. I know that we're sometimes talking about like how much they're charging, the businesses and things of that nature, that they're working with that are, right now. But this is good. It's good to see GrubHub doing something that's definitely more philanthropic, and obviously Girl Scout cookies still being able to get those cookies out there and raise money for the organization as a whole. So, it's funny, I did Girl Scouts for a second growing up, and I really mean a second. And, I only remember like the food aspect of it. I hardly remember any of like the extra stuff that we were supposed to be learning. It was a very food centric troop at that point. So, I think that it's interesting how they're like continuing to just, progress and do those things. And I like that something so kind of traditional like Girl Scouts is doing something a little more forward thinking. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's super fun. I know my daughter was involved with Girl Scouts for a few years, and we were out selling the cookies and trying to raise the money and all of that, and so I know the challenges of that, and I think it's really cool that you can do this online now, and that GrubHub is sort of offering their platform as a way to kind of get these out to people, especially in COVID times. And I think that the other thing that I think is interesting about this is the payments piece of it too, right? Because I think that just because it's online, because you can sort of order and use a sort of online or mobile payment type of platform, it makes it a lot easier, and maybe people more willing to buy the cookies, right? Because in the old days, like when we used to go do this, like you're going door to door, like knocking on doors, selling cookies, and like you're collecting cash, right? And it's not like the girls were walking around with little square readers on their phones or something at that time, right? Like it wasn't there. So so I think this is it's a neat way to see them evolve and continue to do something that is, as you say, so traditional, and still find ways to get that out there. And I like it. I don't know if we have this going on here in Canada. I will have to research if the Girl Scouts Canada are also teaming up with Uber Eats or somebody up here, maybe. I don't know. But very interesting. So, all right, our final story for this week is about a company called Firefly. Now, we've talked about Firefly before. These are the guys who have taxi and rideshare advertising on the top of the cars, like billboard, digital signage on top of the cars. And so they've launched a new platform called Street.IQ. It's Street.IQ, if you're looking it up, from Firefly. And they say this is the first and only product to use live data to optimize the out-of-home campaign performance mid-flight. So basically, what they're saying is they can measure the sort of the reaction and the performance of kind of who's around and who's seeing this stuff against what ad content is on the screen, and they can kind of look at this by time of day of week, the location the vehicle's in, and screen the creative or validate that the creative is resonating with the audience, and then kind of change that up in real time. And so, first of all, I love this idea. I think it's right central to what we do at the LBMA, and this idea of how we talk about location-based marketing is this intersection of people, places, and media, and all of that being real time. And I remember years ago, like I'm talking 7-8 years ago, one of the things that we do at the LBMA is these sort of test projects, pilot projects. We call them creative collaborations. We haven't done any actually for a good year now with COVID, but way back when, we did this little project in New York City where we took a bus that had a digital signage screen on the side of the bus. And this is like 8 years ago. This is early days. Basically, we built this little test data platform where we knew what creative was on the bus, or what creative was possible to be on the bus. So there was I think there was only 3 choices of different creative. And then on the other side, we had Foursquare data. And so what we would do is when the bus stopped at an intersection at a red light, we would see just who was on Foursquare in that intersection, like standing around at that time, basically the captive audience relative to that bus. And then in real time, we would kind of take that data, build a demographic profile based on the Foursquare data from there, and then deliver one of 3 pieces of ad content in real time while the bus was still stopped. We would change the content to reflect the people who were standing around. And so I think this idea of being able to measure, being able to tweak, being able to understand kind of what's going on and change content based on audience I think is brilliant. Now, obviously, we were just testing that, at that time, that it was possible. This is actually a scalable platform, that's available on, on top of vehicles, and moving and measurable. So, obviously things have come a long way since then. So I love the idea of what they're going after here, and I think it does. When you're trying to go, not so much one to one. Out of home is not really a one to one medium. But one to many, but being able to sort of really target that many and really know who the many is that's around this screen at this time, and then be able to target. I think you've really tapped into the idea of true location-based marketing. So I'm quite enamored with this solution and interested to learn more about what they're doing. And so they're testing this out right now. The first campaign that they've been doing is with Puma, the running shoe brand, and they've been testing this around their flagship store on Fifth Ave. So New Yorkers get some exposure to this.
Yeah, I think this is super interesting. When you think about advertising as a whole, there's a lot of variables. And so, I think the goal always is to have the most control over those variables and then be able to address those within real time for optimum performance of any campaign, right? So, when you it's with that specific audience, but part of that variable also is the creative, as you mentioned. And so when you think about the ability to optimize that creative and make it, what resonates best with the audience that's there, or predictive, I think is really interesting. I actually caught up with, I'm sure you remember, RJ Tallier. Used to be pretty involved in LBMA back in the day, and he launched his company Pattern 89 not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, and they're doing great. And so we were catching up last week and just talking about what they're up to, about how they're using AI to make those better decisions, pre-campaign, but also in the middle of the campaign, about what creative is resonating and what's more optimal. And so I love seeing these types of approaches with like Street.IQ, Firefly. Like, what does that look like for digital out of home? What does that look like for any digital contained in real time? So I thought, for so long there's been a focus on the ad format or the audience it's targeted to, and there's been less consideration on what the creative is that resonates with that audience. And so pulling those things together and making sure that they're working hand in hand is it just goes back to, like, there's a scientific method rather than it just being an art. There's actually things that you can measure, and the more that you can control, obviously, and have less variables, the better the outcome's going to be. So I think that it's cool to see this happening, like in digital out of home, and as well as just, traditional digital advertising.
Agree. Yeah, I'm going to watch that one closely, because I think it's got a lot of potential to, sort of be something that I think, from a tech point of view, from a, sort of how we approach, the ad delivery and the measurement side of things, can be applied to so many other parts of the digital out of home ecosystem. Not just car tops, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So yeah, so that's it. That's our show for this week. 4 stories there, and a wide array of things to cover. But hopefully something piqued your interest in that. You've been listening to episode number 504 of Location Weekly. We thank you for your time. And of course, if you have story ideas, reach out to us. If you have feedback, we want to hear about that too. Give us some love on social media. Again, we want to welcome our newest audience in India, who's consuming this on the Awas podcast platform there. We're glad to have you guys on board too. Feel free to join in, send us stories of what's going on over there too. We want to include that in the show. So have a good week, everybody. We'll be back next week with yet another show, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.